The inheritance papers had been crystal clear. Property of Marcus Webb, effective immediately upon Ezra Webb's death. But as Marcus stood at the cattle gate of what should have been his windfall, he realized the lawyers had left out one crucial detail. The sprawling ranch stretched out before him under the harsh afternoon sun, cattle dotting the distant pastures like scattered stones. Fence lines ran straight and true, the corrals looked freshly mended, and smoke curled from the main house chimney, yet it all felt like someone else's life. That was the first sign something wasn't right. Dead men don't build fires. Marcus had ridden hard for 3 days to get here after getting word of his uncle's passing. Ezra Webb had been the black sheep of the family, the brother who disappeared west 30 years ago and never looked back. The family had whispered stories about him over the years. Some said he'd been a lawman. Others claimed he'd been on the wrong side of the law entirely. But when the lawyer's letter arrived saying he'd left him the ranch, Marcus saw it as providence. A carpenter's wages in Kansas barely kept a man fed, and the promise of his own land had pulled him west like a magnet. He'd expected to find a run-down property, maybe some scattered cattle and a house that needed work. What he found instead was a working ranch that looked like it had been carefully maintained by someone who knew what they were doing. The sound reached him first, soft humming drifting from the direction of the barn, a woman's voice carrying a tune he didn't recognize. Marcus pulled up his horse and sat listening, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. The lawyer hadn't mentioned anyone else living on the property. "Hello?" Marcus called out, keeping his voice friendly but cautious. "Anyone there?" No answer came back, but he caught a flash of movement near the barn door. Someone was definitely there, and they were trying to stay hidden. Marcus felt his hand drift toward the old Colt revolver on his hip. "I'm Marcus Webb. This was my uncle's place, Ezra Webb. I inherited it when he passed." The silence stretched long enough that Marcus began to wonder if he'd imagined the humming. Then a voice answered from inside the barn, clear but cautious. "Prove it." The voice belonged to a woman, young from the sound of it, but there was steel underneath the words. Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out the folded papers the lawyer had given him. "I've got the deed right here, signed and legal." "Anyone can forge papers," the voice replied. "What was Ezra's horse named?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd never visited his uncle, never even met the man face to face. "I don't know," he admitted. "I never met my uncle. We weren't close." A long pause followed, and Marcus could almost feel the woman weighing his honesty. When she finally spoke again, her voice had lost some of her edge. "Thunder. His horse was named Thunder, and he was the meanest, most stubborn animal that ever drew breath. Ezra used to say that horse was too ornery to die, which made them perfect for each other." Marcus smiled despite the tension. "That sounds like something a Webb would say." "Sounds about right for family," he said. "We Webbs tend to be stubborn." The woman stepped out of the barn's shadows into the afternoon sunlight. Marcus felt his breath catch. She was probably 25, with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid and wearing men's work clothes that had seen hard use. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped him cold. It was the rifle in her hands, held with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use it. "Name's Sarah," she said, studying his face with sharp green eyes. "Sarah Mitchell. I've been running this place since your uncle got too sick to manage it himself." "Running it?" Marcus repeated. "For how long?" 6 years, Sarah replied. "Ever since he found me and brought me here." "I didn't know," he said honestly. "The lawyer never mentioned anyone else living here." "Because legally, I don't exist," Sarah replied with a bitter smile. "Your uncle made sure of that, kept me off all the paperwork, never registered me with any territorial offices. Far as the government knows, this ranch has been run by a ghost for the past 6 years. "Why would he do that?" Sarah's grip on the rifle tightened. Because there are men looking for me. Bad men who want to finish something they started a long time ago. Marcus looked around at the well-maintained buildings, the healthy cattle. You built all this? Your uncle and I built it together. He taught me everything about running cattle, managing land, reading weather patterns. Said a person who could survive what I had been through could learn to do anything she set her mind to. What did they start? He asked quietly. Sarah's eyes grew distant. They killed my family, my parents, my 2 brothers, even our hired hand, shot them down like animals for something that belonged to us. What was it? Gold, Sarah said simply. My father found a vein running through our land up north, rich enough to set us up for life. But word got out, and these men decided it would be easier to take it than to buy it legal. They killed my family, but they never found the gold. I'm the only one left who knows where it is. Marcus felt a chill despite the warm afternoon air. How many of them are still alive? I don't know for sure, Sarah admitted. Your uncle went after them one by one over the years, but he never told me exactly how many there were to start with. Why are you telling me this? Sarah lowered the rifle slightly. Because hiding is all I've done for 6 years, and I'm tired of it. Your uncle promised me that someday I'd be able to live like a normal person again, but now he's gone, and those men are still out there. She looked at him directly. Besides, this is your land now, fair and legal. You have a right to know what you inherited. What happens now? He asked. Sarah's expression grew uncertain. I suppose that depends on you. You could tell me to pack up and leave, and I wouldn't blame you for that. Where would you go? I don't know, she admitted. I've been here so long I don't really remember how to live any other place. Marcus studied her face, noting the fear she was trying to hide behind practical words. The truth is, she had nowhere to go. I think, he said slowly, that any ranch this size needs at least 2 people to run it properly. And it seems like you know this place better than anyone. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, Marcus corrected. You keep doing what you've been doing, teach me what I need to know, and we split the profits fair and square. For a moment, Sarah looked like she might cry. Then she straightened her shoulders and extended her hand. Partners? Partners, Marcus agreed, shaking her hand firmly.
What do you think Sarah's hiding, partner? Tell me in the comments and subscribe. The story is about to get dangerous.
The next few days passed in a blur of hard work and careful conversation. Sarah showed Marcus every corner of the ranch, and he found himself genuinely impressed by her knowledge and skill. She could read weather patterns like a book, spot a sick animal from 100 yards away, and handle the most stubborn cattle with patience and authority. It was during fence repairs in the south pasture that Sarah told him about Ezra. He found me 3 days after they killed my family, she said, her voice steady but distant as she stretched wire between fence posts. I'd been hiding in the rocks above our burned-out homestead, too scared to move, too scared to stay. He'd heard about the murders and came to see what had happened. Marcus held the wire steady while she secured it. What did he do? Sarah smiled, the first genuinely warm expression Marcus had seen from her. He sat down about 50 feet away and started talking about Thunder, that ornery horse of his. Spent maybe 2 hours just talking to the rocks like it was the most normal thing in the world. Eventually, I got curious enough to peek out and look at him. And then, asked me if I was hungry, Sarah said. Such a simple question, but it was the first time in days that anyone had cared whether I lived or died. He brought me here that same day, told me I could stay as long as I needed. They were heading back toward the main house when Sarah suddenly stiffened, her hand moving toward the rifle in the wagon bed. What is it? Marcus asked. Riders, she said quietly, pointing toward a distant rise to the east. 5 of them, coming this way. Marcus shielded his eyes against the afternoon glare and could just make out the dark shapes moving across the grassland. Could be anyone. Sarah's face had gone pale. They're riding in formation, spread out like they're expecting trouble. That's not how honest folks approach a ranch. They drove hard across the pasture, the wagon bouncing over uneven ground. By the time they reached the ranch yard, the approaching riders were close enough to count individual horses. Sarah immediately began checking weapons. Marcus found himself doing the same, old instincts awakening. The riders entered the ranch yard in that same tactical formation. The man with the badge rode slightly ahead of the others. "Good afternoon," the man called out. "I'm Deputy Marshal Crawford, Territorial Law Enforcement. Are you the owner of this property?" Marcus stepped forward. "I'm Marcus Webb. This is my ranch." "Mr. Webb," Crawford acknowledged, "we're tracking a dangerous fugitive who may be hiding in this area. Young woman, dark hair, probably using the name Sarah Mitchell. You seen anyone matching that description?" Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What's she wanted for?" "Murder, theft, and conspiracy. She's part of a gang that killed a mining family up north, stole a significant amount of gold. We have reliable information that she's been hiding somewhere in this territory." Marcus glanced sideways at Sarah and saw her face had gone completely blank. She wasn't denying Crawford's accusations. "I haven't seen anyone matching that description. It's just been me and my hired hands working this ranch." Crawford's eyes narrowed, studying Sarah beside the wagon. "And who might this be?" Sarah stepped forward before Marcus could answer. "I'm Sam Mitchell, Mr. Webb's ranch foreman." The name was close enough to create doubt. Crawford studied her face intently. "Sam Mitchell," Crawford repeated slowly. "That's interesting. The woman we're hunting has the same last name." One of Crawford's men leaned forward in his saddle. "Marshal, that sure looks like the description we got." Crawford dismounted slowly, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "See, that's where things get interesting, because we have a witness who says the surviving member of the Mitchell family was a young woman, not a young man." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a wanted poster, issued 6 years ago. Take a look at that drawing and tell me it doesn't look exactly like your Sam here." Marcus took the poster with hands that tried not to shake. The drawing was crude but recognizable. It clearly showed Sarah's face. Crawford smiled coldly. "Now we can do this easy or we can do this hard, but either way, that woman is coming with us." Sarah looked at Marcus, and in her eyes she saw resignation mixed with apology. She was giving up, ready to surrender rather than put him in more danger. That's when Marcus realized something was wrong with Crawford's story. "This poster," Marcus said slowly, studying it more carefully, "it says here that Sarah Mitchell was wanted for killing the Brennan family, but you said she killed the Mitchell family." Crawford's smile faltered. "Different families, same criminal." "That's interesting," Marcus continued, "because my foreman here told me his family used to work a gold claim up north before they were all killed by claim jumpers." Understanding flashed in Sarah's eyes. "That's right, boss. The claim jumpers murdered my whole family when they wouldn't sell, shot my parents and my brothers in cold blood." Crawford's hand moved toward his weapon. "That's enough of this nonsense." "Now hold on," Marcus said. "If this woman killed families like you claim, how would she know the details about her own family being murdered? It seems like she'd be the one doing the killing, not the one being killed." Marcus noticed for the first time that none of them were wearing proper law enforcement badges. The metal pinned to Crawford's vest looked more like something bought from a general store. "You know what I think?" Marcus continued. "I think you men aren't lawmen at all. I think you're the ones who killed Sarah's family, and now you're here to finish the job." "There it is," Sarah said grimly. "Now we're getting to the truth." The pretense of legal authority evaporated, and Crawford's men spread out further, their weapons now openly displayed. "Where's the gold, Sarah?" Crawford demanded. "Your father hid it before we could make him talk, and you're the only one who knows where it is." "My father never told me where he hid it. He died protecting that secret." "She's not going anywhere," Marcus said quietly. Crawford laughed. "You're planning to stop us, Carpenter? There's 5 of us and 2 of you." Marcus tilted his head.
studying Crawford with the calm attention of a predator evaluating prey. I only see targets. The casual confidence in his voice sent a chill through Crawford's men. "You're not Ezra Webb," Crawford said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah laughed bitterly. "You obviously never heard the stories about Ezra Webb. He wasn't lucky, Crawford. He was the best there ever was at what he did. Your uncle was known as the Phantom throughout the territory 20 years ago." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Crawford's confident expression was beginning to crack. "Maybe," Sarah agreed, "but he taught everything he knew to someone before he died. Someone who might have inherited more than just his ranch." All eyes turned to Marcus. The truth was, he'd never been a gunfighter like his uncle, but looking at Crawford and his men, seeing the greed and cruelty in their faces, Marcus realized that sometimes reputation mattered more than reality. "Crawford," he said, his voice carrying a deadly calm he didn't know he possessed, "you have about 10 seconds to get off my property before I show you what Ezra Webb really taught me." Crawford's men were exchanging nervous glances, suddenly unsure about their numerical advantage. "You're not Ezra Webb," Crawford said, but his voice lacked conviction. Marcus smiled, and it was a genuinely dangerous expression. "No, I'm not, but I'm something he never was." "What's that?" "I'm younger, and I've got more to lose." The standoff stretched for several heartbeats. Finally, one of Crawford's men broke the silence. "Maybe we should come back later with more men." "This isn't over, Webb," Crawford snarled as they backed away. "That gold belongs to us." "The gold belongs to the Mitchell family," Marcus corrected. "And since Sarah is the only Mitchell alive, I'd say that makes it hers." Crawford and his men rode away, but Marcus could see the defeat in their posture only went so deep. Sarah waited until they were out of sight before sagging with relief. "That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the most foolish." Marcus watched the dust cloud disappearing in the distance. "They'll be back, probably with more men." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "I should leave. I have no right to bring this kind of trouble down on you." "The hell you don't," Marcus replied firmly. "We're partners, remember? That means we face problems together." That night, as they sat around the kitchen table, Sarah finally told Marcus the complete truth. "My father found the vein by accident," she began. "He was tracking a wounded deer when he noticed quartz formations that looked promising. It wasn't just gold, it was one of the richest veins anyone had ever seen in the territory." Marcus listened intently as she explained how her father had tried to keep the discovery secret, but word had gotten out. Crawford's gang had approached with offers to buy the land, then forged documents claiming debts, and finally resorted to murder when legal theft failed. "They came at dawn," Sarah said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Shot my father first, then my mother when she tried to run to him. My brothers tried to fight back, but they were just boys with hunting rifles against experienced killers." "How did you escape?" "I hid in the root cellar while they searched the house, listened to them tearing the place apart looking for maps that would show them where the gold was hidden. When they couldn't find anything, they started the fire." Sarah's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "I stayed hidden until the flames got too close, then crawled out while they were watching the front of the house burn." "But they never found the gold." Sarah smiled for the first time since beginning her story. "My father was too smart for them. He never dug the gold out of the ground in the first place, just marked the location of the vein and covered it back up, planning to work it properly when he could afford the right equipment." "So the gold is still there?" "As far as I know, but the location died with my father, and I've never been back to look for it." She met his eyes directly. "That's the truth, Marcus. I don't know exactly where the gold is hidden." Marcus studied her face, looking for any sign of deception, and finding none. "Crawford and his men don't believe that." "No, they don't. The question is, do you believe it? I believe every word, Marcus said without hesitation. Relief washed over Sarah's features. Thank you. That means more than you know. They spent the rest of the night preparing for Crawford's inevitable return. As dawn approached, they heard the thunder of hoofbeats in the distance. Crawford was returning, and this time he'd brought more men. 8 riders, Sarah observed. He's serious about this. Marcus moved to his travel bags and began opening them with deliberate movements. Sarah, I need you to go inside and stay there until I tell you it's safe. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. How are you going to take on 8 armed men by yourself? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he began pulling items from his saddlebags that Sarah had never seen before. Not the simple tools of a carpenter, but an arsenal that spoke of an entirely different profession. 2 pearl-handled Colt .45s with custom grips, a lever-action Winchester rifle with telescopic sights, throwing knives balanced to perfection, ammunition pouches designed for quick access. Sarah's eyes widened as she watched Marcus check each weapon with practiced efficiency, his movements revealing skills that no carpenter should possess. Marcus, who are you really? But he was already strapping on a double gun belt, transforming before her eyes from a quiet rancher into something far more dangerous. Just stay inside, he said quietly. This will be over soon. Marcus stepped out onto the porch as Crawford and his enlarged gang rode into the ranch yard. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dirt. Morning, Webb. Hope you had time to think about our conversation. I have, Marcus replied, his hands resting casually near his weapons. Thought you boys should ride out while you still can. Crawford's men burst into laughter. One man thinks he can face down 8 of us. Crawford held up a hand to silence his men. Webb, why don't you just step aside and let us have our conversation with the woman? The woman stays where she is, and you boys leave now or things get unpleasant. Unpleasant for who? There's 8 of us and 1 of you. Marcus tilted his head, studying Crawford with the calm attention of a predator. I only see targets. Crawford's sharp-eyed companion, Johnny, shifted nervously. Something's not right here, Crawford. Look at his hands. Crawford looked more closely and saw what had caught Johnny's attention, a distinctive crescent-shaped scar on his right palm. Crawford's face went pale. Jesus Christ, are you the Echo? The laughter died instantly. Every man in Crawford's gang knew that name, knew the stories of the government tracker who could eliminate entire criminal organizations single-handedly. Marcus smiled, and it was perhaps the most terrifying expression any of them had ever seen. You got it right, Crawford. What happened next took exactly 3 seconds. Marcus drew both Colts simultaneously, the weapons seeming to appear in his hands like magic. The first shot took Crawford through the heart before the outlaw could even reach for his gun. The second and third shots dropped the 2 men flanking him. 3 bodies hit the ground before the echo of the first gunshot had finished rolling across the valley. The remaining 5 gang members scattered in panic, but Marcus was already moving, the Winchester appearing in his hands. The crack of the rifle echoed as one of the fleeing riders tumbled from his horse 200 yards away. Another shot, and a second man fell. 2 gang members had taken cover behind a water trough. Marcus's third rifle shot punched through the wood and the man behind it, as if neither had existed. The last surviving gang member broke from cover and ran toward the barn, but Marcus tracked him with calm precision. The final shot echoed across the morning air, and the man crumpled just steps from what he'd thought would be safety. Total elapsed time, Less than 2 minutes. Marcus stood in the sudden silence, calmly reloading his weapons. Around him, 8 bodies lay scattered across the ranch yard. Sarah burst through the front door, stopping short when she saw the carnage. 8 men! You killed 8 armed men in less than 2 minutes! Marcus holstered his Colts. They came here to hurt you. That was their mistake. Sarah's eyes fell on his open saddlebag, where official government documents were visible. With trembling hands, she pulled out a leather folder and opened it. The papers inside made her blood run cold. Official territorial government authorization, order signed by governors, and a detailed dossier. Agent Marcus Webb, code name The Echo, specialized in elimination of criminal organizations deemed too dangerous for standard law enforcement. Confirmed kills, 89. Status, retired. The Echo, she said, looking up at him with new understanding. You're actually the Echo. I was, he corrected gently. That's not who I am anymore. Why didn't you tell me? Because I hoped I'd never have to be that person again. I came west to build something, not to keep killing. But when men like Crawford threaten what I'm trying to protect... Sarah walked over to him, reaching up to touch the distinctive scar on his palm. The Echo was feared throughout the territory, but Marcus Webb is the man who chose to use those skills to protect me. She smiled, and it was full of genuine warmth. That makes you a hero. Marcus felt something tight in his chest finally relax. You're afraid of me? I'm afraid for anyone stupid enough to threaten us. We're not just partners anymore, Marcus. We're the most dangerous partnership in the territory.
Word of what happened at the Webb Ranch spread through the territory like wildfire. 8 dead gunmen, all killed by one man in less than 2 minutes. The Echo had returned, and every outlaw from the Mexican border to Canada suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. After giving their statements to the sheriff and confirming the identities of the dead men, Marcus and Sarah made preparations for a journey that had been 6 years in the making. They packed supplies and set out for the site where Sarah's family had lived and died. The journey north took them through increasingly wild terrain. On the afternoon of the second day, Sarah called a halt at the top of a ridge overlooking a small valley. Below them, Marcus could see the ruins of what had once been a thriving homestead. "That's it," Sarah said quietly. "That's where I grew up." They made camp in the ruins of the barn. As the sun set behind the western peaks, Sarah walked through the remains of her childhood home, touching broken pieces of furniture with reverence. "I can still hear them sometimes. My mother singing, my brothers arguing about chores. This place used to be full of life." "It will be again," Marcus promised. "Different life, but something good." They began their search at dawn, following faint traces of old trails up into the rocky country where Sarah's father had done his secret prospecting. By mid-morning, they'd found clear signs of mining activity, old pick marks on stone faces, carefully stacked rock piles, equipment hidden in gullies. It was Sarah who found the final site, recognizing a distinctive rock formation from childhood expeditions with her father. Hidden beneath a carefully constructed pile of stones, they discovered the entrance to a small mine shaft. "This is it," Sarah breathed. "This is where he found it." They carefully removed the camouflage entrance, revealing a narrow shaft that descended into the hillside. Marcus lit a lantern and peered into the darkness, noting the careful timber work that supported the tunnel walls. They descended slowly, the tunnel extending about 50 feet before opening into a small chamber where the real work had been done. And there, gleaming in the lantern light like captured sunlight,
was the gold vein that had cost the Mitchell family their lives. It was more extensive than Marcus had imagined. Quartz formation shot through with veins of pure gold that reflected the light like metal threads woven through white cloth. Even with his limited mining knowledge, Marcus could see this was an extraordinarily rich deposit. My God! No wonder Crawford was willing to kill for this. Sarah stood beside him, staring at the treasure that represented her family's dreams and their doom. All those years of hiding, and it was here, waiting the whole time. What do we do now? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and then smiled with genuine peace. Now we take what we need to build something good, and we leave the rest for future generations. Over the next 3 days, they carefully extracted enough gold to fund ambitious plans that would honor her family's memory. Schools for children who had none, hospitals for the sick and injured, way stations for travelers in need of shelter. But they left the majority of the vein untouched, sealing the mine shaft again and returning the site to its camouflage state. Someone else will find it someday, Sarah said, as they prepared to leave. Maybe someone who needs it more than we do. 6 months later, the first Sarah Mitchell School opened its doors in the territorial capital. The Marcus Webb Hospital followed a year after that, and then a series of way stations that provided safe haven for anyone seeking a new start. But what Marcus treasured most was the ranch they'd built together, where cattle grew fat on rich grassland, and where two people who'd lost everything had found their way to something better than either had dared to hope for. The Echo's reputation ensured their safety, but Marcus Webb's choices defined their legacy. Some legends were born in violence and fear, but the best ones were built in love and partnership, one good decision at a time. In the territorial capital, where children learned to read and schools funded by hidden gold, people would tell stories for generations about the Echo and his partner, who turned a curse into a blessing and proved that sometimes the deadliest legends make the greatest protectors. The gold had brought them together, but what they built with it would last long after the stories of gunfights had faded into history. That was a legacy worth more than any treasure and better than any reputation a man could earn with just his guns. And that's the end of our tale, partner. Sometimes the most dangerous legends are the ones who choose to build instead of destroy. And sometimes the greatest treasures aren't gold or silver, but the partnerships that turn ordinary people into forces for extraordinary good. If you enjoyed this story of hidden identities, deadly skills, and justice served with precision, be sure to subscribe to Tony Tells Tales for more stories where the past and future collide in ways that change everything. Until next time, remember that who you choose to become matters more than who you used to be, and that some legends are best measured not by who they killed, but who they saved.